The Mysteries of Brambletown. Book 1, Cromwell Croquet. Chapter 1. Rosabel Cromwell very nearly died of fright when, swept open by a prodigious gust, the century-old door of the small shop, Cromwell and Cromwell, magical games inventors, since 1826, slammed violently against the stone wall supporting its frame, all painted purple. The precious model of Cromwell Croquet, barely finished, had narrowly escaped disaster. By some miracle, Rosabel had placed it prominently in the window barely a second before the glass of the adjoining door, freshly repainted with the gilded initials C&C, shattered magnificently. One hand pressed to her chest, Rosabel felt her heart pounding wildly. With cautious steps, she approached the entrance. Not a breath crossed the threshold. No wind was blowing outside. Nothing. So how?
Excuse the damage. I'm terribly sorry.
Rosabel stepped back and stared in astonishment as a young man burst in like a whirlwind, elegantly dressed, a gentleman's wand in hand, his cheeks slightly flushed with agitation.
I merely wanted to save a second or two by opening the door from a few paces away, but in my haste the spell came out far too forcefully. Of course, this never happens under normal circumstances.
Rosabel kept her mouth shut, but her gaze hardened as she grasped what had just occurred.
I shall put everything right naturally, but before that, and you may find this odd, could you tell me where the broom cupboard is, please?
You don't have a broom with you,
replied Rosabel, growing increasingly irritated.
So I gather you're not looking for the customer broom storage intended for flying brooms, but rather the cupboard containing the shop's maintenance broom, so that you can repair the damage you've just caused. Is that it?
The man rubbed his forehead nervously. He could not keep still, despite his efforts to speak calmly. He kept glancing out into the street through the window, as though he feared being followed.
Not exactly. I am indeed looking for a transport broom. A broom? To borrow.
To borrow?
Yes, precisely.
Alas, as you can plainly see for yourself, we are not a broom hire shop.
Evidently,
he muttered, sweeping his gaze around the shop. There were leather balls of every kind everywhere, some fitted with hooks, others with wings, these kept in cages for obvious reasons, as well as various unidentified playable accessories in painted or varnished wood, sometimes woven straw or metal. An entire stretch of wall was covered in headgear and team uniforms, distinguishable by their colours, neatly aligned on rails descending from the ceiling. And then, in the window and at the centre of the room, proudly displayed like trophies, stood the models of magical games cleverly invented and painstakingly reconstructed by Cromwell Sr. But nowhere was there the slightest flying broom.
in that case, I shall borrow yours, if you permit me, and only for a few minutes. Ah, I see the cupboard in question,
he exclaimed with relief, striding across the cluttered room towards a door adorned with a golden broom engraved upon its panel. All the shops along this great shopping street of Brambletown possessed such a cupboard for the comfort of their clientele. For, as people now said in town, the days were long gone when one could leave one's broom tied up outside, simply held by a rope to stop it flying off without you. Broom thefts had multiplied, and no one resigned themselves any longer to abandoning their mount in the open air, much to the dismay of those chiefly concerned, who, for the most part, hated finding themselves shut away in the dark, packed together with a crowd of strangers against whom they brushed their precious sheaves. Behind closed doors, conflicts were frequent, and some brooms regularly lost a few twigs there. That was why the wealthiest owners sometimes had several. Cheap leisure brooms, fitted with small removable saddles and retractable footrests, so they could slip more easily into the narrow storage spaces. But also long-distance transport brooms, equipped with wide saddles, sometimes with backrests, and comfortable stirrups. or else sophisticated ceremonial brooms, elegant but thoroughly impractical, reserved for social gatherings for the sole purpose of impressing onlookers. Rosabelle watched the man with the destructive wand fling open the cupboard door. The corner of her lips twitched slightly when he turned back, crestfallen.
But there isn't a single broom in there.
Evidently.
She echoed.
But don't you yourself?
No,
But how do you…
with my legs. It's called walking.
Walking?
He repeated, already absorbed by another idea.
Does the back room door lead anywhere?
By broom? To the sky, sir.
And on foot?
You'll take fewer than 10 steps before finding yourself facing a wall.
Blast! To stumble upon the only shopkeeper without a broom in the whole of Broom Street.
As he muttered these words, a female voice from the street made itself heard, first distant, then increasingly distinct.
Archibald, darling, whatever has become of you? Are you playing tricks on me, my dear? This is no longer funny. Show yourself. Archie!
The young woman, all dolled up, now poked her head through the shop door. Rosabelle, who had followed the sound of the voice, turned back towards the broom cupboard, where she had left the presumed Archibald a moment earlier. He had vanished.
Good day to you.
She called out, stepping over the threshold. Perched precariously on her shoulder clung a tiny dragonette with iridescent white scales. It could not have been more than a few weeks old, unless it was a specimen afflicted with double dwarfism, a rare genetic peculiarity and therefore much sought after. Double dwarfs could sell for more than 20 times the price of an ordinary dragonette. Add to that a rare colouring, like this one, perfectly immaculate, and their value could reach that of a small house.
Oh, do you know there is glass all over the floor, my dear?
An unfortunate accident, I'm afraid.
Explained Rosabelle.
Not everyone has mastery of their elemental spells, you know how it is. Sometimes one merely tries to open a door with a wand, and everything shatters.
But surely even a child could magically turn a handle.
You're quite right.
Smiled Rosabelle. An angry thump resounded against the broom cupboard door. Rosabelle smiled all the more. The visitor eyed the door sternly.
You should train your broom better, or let it out of there a little more often. A broom that bangs about makes a poor impression on customers, my dear.
Fortunately for me, it isn't mine. That said, you're quite right. It is evidently particularly ill-mannered. Would you like to see it? At first glance, it's very elegant, you know. You might like it, I'm sure. You could even leave with it. What do you say?
Rosabelle's footsteps approaching the cupboard made the floorboards creak, causing lively agitation inside. Furious blows struck the wooden panels. Something, or someone, seemed to be doing everything possible to remain out of reach.
No, thank you,
exclaimed the young woman, already turning away. Her dragonette now appeared particularly interested in the enchanted movements of a model displayed on the large wooden cabinet at the centre of the shop.
Do you like it, my darling? Would you like Mummy to buy it for you to play with?
She addressed the creature like a mother to a child, with that shrill, slightly ridiculous little voice adults adopt when speaking to an intelligence they deem inferior.
Unfortunately, our models are not for sale, I'm afraid,
explained Rosabelle.
They are all made as unique pieces and serve to explain the rules of the magical games we invent. And besides, dragonettes are not permitted in the shop, as was stated, in puzzle form, on the debris now strewn across the floor at the entrance.
The young woman sniggered.
And why should my little Hubert not be allowed to enter this hovel?
She spat the last word with disdain.
No doubt because we keep precious wooden models here that would burst into flames at the slightest spark. Or at the slightest dragonette sneeze, I imagine.
That wouldn't be so serious. I could repay you 10 times their value, you know. As you can see, money is no object to me.
Rosabelle maintained perfect composure and lifted her chin slightly.
That is precisely the problem. They are priceless. Months of work and thought are required to conceive them. But forgive me. I hadn't realized you couldn't understand that. How foolish of me. Please excuse me, my dear.
She accompanied her words with a faint, sideways smile. The visitor narrowed her eyes, visibly venomous.
I shan't stay a moment longer. You are extremely disagreeable, and rest assured I shall tell all my noble friends how ridiculous I find your little magical games that no one where I come from has ever heard of. Cromwell croquet.
She says, reading the sign in the window.
Grotesque. Hubert, we're leaving.
She turned on her heel towards the door.
Wait!
Rosabelle called after her, running to catch up.
You really don't want to leave with…
But the woman and her dragonette were already outside, escorted by the chaperone who had remained there the entire time.
The specimen hiding in my cupboard.
Rosabelle finished to herself. She sighed, turned towards the broom cupboard, folded her arms, and waited in silence. After a few moments, the handle creaked softly, then turned. The door opened a crack.
Has she gone?
Whispered a voice. In response, Rosabelle tapped her foot impatiently.
Archibald, I presume? You may come out.
He did so, brushed down his expensive coat, then closed the door behind him.
So, you were looking for a broom to flee through the back door of the first shop you came across.
You will understand why.
And you couldn't resist choosing ours. We are honoured, truly.
Ours?
Cromwell and Cromwell, father and daughter. Reassure me, you may not know how to cast an elemental spell, but you can at least read.
What wit! I like you. Not like that unbearable Lady Talloway with her airs and her frenzied gossip.
On the contrary, I think you'll suit each other very well. Your manners seem perfectly matched.
Are you joking? She's insufferable. Mother's obsession with finding me a suitable wife. It's rich coming from her. But I digress. I haven't even introduced myself properly. Lord Archibald Valmont.
A lord, then? In my shop? Well, how original. This encounter certainly never ceases to surprise me,
she said dryly. Archibald looked amused.
You don't seem in the least impressed, unlike most ordinary people the moment they learn of my title, which makes me all the more delighted to meet you, miss.
Rosabelle Cromwell. And I would very much like to know what exactly I'm supposed to be impressed by. Your mere birth? You know, Mr. Valmont, I too once managed to emerge from my mother's womb. No one would dream of bowing to me for it. You've done no more than I have to arrive in this world. On that point, it seems to me we stand on equal footing, don't you agree?
Archibald now seemed wildly amused by the situation. But bound by well-ingrained conventions, he coughed to regain his composure.
Indeed, Miss Cromwell, and allow me to say that you bear a most charming name. It suits you wonderfully.
Rosabelle stifled a laugh.
Given your spectacular entrance into my shop, perhaps we can dispense with the bows your rank demands and allow you to attend to… this?
She pointed to the shards of glass, glittering in the sunlight.
The door! I almost forgot.
You seem to be the only one, my lord.
Archibald sketched another wry smile and moved towards the scene of the disaster. He drew his polished wand from his jacket, pointed it at the heap of shattered glass, and elegantly raised it to the height of the door, which now bore an empty frame. The shards then rose into the air with the grace of a flock of birds, reassembled the puzzle like disciplined people forming ranks, and with a crystalline crackle slid back into their frame, magically fusing together. The pane was once more in place. Archibald lowered his wand and turned towards Rosabelle, dignified, as though expecting something.
May I?
She asked confidently.
Of course,
he replied in the same tone. Rosabelle went to inspect the newly repaired glass closely.
There,
she pointed.
Well?
See for yourself.
Archibald looked surprised, but complied. He stepped closer to the door as Rosabelle yielded her place. In the middle of the gilded ampersand of the C&C, one could see a faint crack. An infinitesimal scratch remained visible in the paint.
Indeed, there remains a tiny…
I therefore demand compensation.
I beg your pardon?
You understood me perfectly. You shattered the door of my shop and failed to restore it to the state it was in before your arrival. Not to mention that I had to endure the temperament of your lady.
She is not my…
And
That I lied to cover for you.
You offered to open the broom cupboard.
But I didn't open it myself, though I could have. Instead, I gave her the opportunity to have nothing to do with the banging specimen inside. All that, only to suffer the threats of your dear Lady Talloway.
But I'm telling you...
Which will earn me a dreadful reputation among your petty noble friends. Not that they'd ever thought of setting foot in my shop. In fact, they didn't even know it existed. And now they will, for the most unfortunate reasons. So you will simply have to compensate me, for the door and for everything else.
Archibald frowned. She had left him speechless.
How much?
200 crown marks.
200!
That shouldn't be too much for your purse, should it? It seems to me that my silence towards Lady Talloway, and Lady Valmont your mother, is well worth that modest sum, isn't it? And for the door, incidentally.
Archibald paused, took a deep breath, then composed a neutral, pleasant expression.
200 crown marks, then. I shall have them sent to you very shortly.
Rosabelle nodded, satisfied,
Good day to you, my lord.
and she watched him leave, almost tempted to confess that the gilded paint had already been cracked long before their meeting.